Everyone says that bodybuilders aren't athletes, that they're pageants, that they're walking anatomy charts who can't run, can't jump, can't dance, and to be fair, if you've seen some open modern guys try to move around at just body weight plus 140 pounds of added chicken rice and, well, supplements, the stereotype doesn't exactly die. But that's not the complete story, because every now and again, a bodybuilder does show up in an actual athletic setting and doesn't completely embarrass himself. And sometimes they are much more athletic than what you'd expect, even beating out elite level athletes. Let's start with this man, Kevin Levrone, the uncrowned Mr. Olympia with a career filled with second place finishes. He has some of the best shoulders in bodybuilding history and even made a full comeback to competing in 2016 at age 52, looking like this. However, Kevin was the most impressive during the 90s and early 2000s. And after his 2002 Mr. Olympia, during an interview, Kevin started talking like crazy. He claimed he had ran a 4.1 40-yard dash back in the day. 4.1 seconds. That is faster than any NFL player in history and would outperform most high-level sprinters from a 250+ pound bodybuilder in contest shape. Naturally, at the time, the internet did what it does best. Yeah, sure, Kevin. Then Levrone takes it one step further and challenges Maurice Green, the world's fastest man at the time, to a foot race. Now, of course, Green never actually accepted this challenge because it's the equivalent of me challenging Brian Shaw to an eating contest. But even if the fastest man on earth didn't accept the challenge, Europe's fastest man, Dwayne Chambers, actually did. And they actually lined up for a 100-meter race. Now, obviously Kevin lost, but the crazy part here is that Kevin didn't totally embarrass himself. He actually held his own way better than he should have, considering he was 80 pounds heavier, built like a fridge with abs, and not exactly very aerodynamic with shoulders like those, and not having sprinted for a decade. And if you think that was impressive, after being retired for a few years, Kevin got back into athletic training, and in 2010, at 46 years old, he ran a 4:52 40-yard dash at 46. And this man comes in and casually outperforms many elite level athletes. So was his original claim of a 4.1 second run real? I don't know, but I certainly know that you don't run a 4.52 at 46 unless you're a genetic anomaly. But you'd expect Kevin, being this fast, to come from an athletic background, but no, supposedly he didn't compete in track and field, and he started training for bodybuilding fairly early on. I guess he just has ridiculous genetics and built a ton of muscle on top of them, and even now at age 61, he still moves better than most dudes half his age. And it makes you wonder if Kevin Levrone could have been a better sprinter than a bodybuilder if he took his career in a different route. Now, from one retired legend to the next, 6-time classic physique Mr. Olympia champion Chris Bumstead is an interesting one. Because unlike Kevin, Chris actually had a sports background. Football, basketball, track and field, even hockey. He didn't really start focusing too much on bodybuilding until he was 19. He started lifting at 14, but he had movement before muscle, an athletic background which definitely played a role in his success even as a bodybuilder. And instead of going full retired dad mode when he was finished, he starts sprinting and jumping. Now, his first attempt at sprinting at high speeds looked pretty rough, which is to be expected if you haven't ran in a decade. You're obviously not gonna look like Christian Coleman overnight. But then he tests his vertical jump, which was estimated to be around 60 centimeters, at over 250 pounds. That's certainly not normal. And what I like biomechanically is how he loads up his jump. He sits very deep, almost like a squat, instead of that shallow, more elastic counter-movement jump that most athletes use. Which, to be fair, makes sense when you've done 6-plate squats for speed reps, and Chris isn't exactly lacking in dynamic strength or force development. But this is the key here, because even though you're not gonna get a good vertical by just being insanely strong, your rate of force development will improve if your maximal force output also gets higher. Chris had an athletic base before specializing, so when he strips some size and adds some speed work back in, his engine is still kind of there. You just need to get it going again, just in the same way that muscle memory works. Now, contrast that with this 1990 wrestling exhibition match. Olympic champion Jokko Salomäki versus the 150-kilo bodybuilder Hans Fell, which on paper seems like the biggest possible mismatch. The two were literally 80 kilos apart. But in reality, this wasn't even close to an even matchup. Despite being much stronger and bigger, the bodybuilder got absolutely ragdolled by the former Olympic champion. And the reason might be fairly obvious. Wrestling is a very high skill sport, which rewards good timing, leverages, and coordination, and in comparison to simple tasks like a vertical jump, a wrestling match has a much higher technical demand, and therefore physical prowess matters less and less, relatively speaking. Like, you can leg press a small car, but it doesn't mean that you can fight hand to hand with an Olympic level athlete. Now granted, if the bodybuilder had an equal or even slightly less skill than the wrestler, the outcomes probably would have been swapped. There is a reason why weight classes exist after all, but it goes to show that the more technically demanding the sport is, the worse a bodybuilder or anyone without practice is going to fare. But since bodybuilders today are so highly specialized towards their sport, it is very rare to see them even attempt doing other sports, or even try out things that are close to their sport, like powerlifting and arm wrestling. And then there's the first World's Strongest Man competition held in 1977. Back then, the term strongman wasn't really a thing yet because nobody was a professional strongman, so the organizers basically said, whoever looks strong, invite them. So they gathered a squad of football players, powerlifters, weightlifters, throwers, and yes, even bodybuilders, those being Lou Ferrigno and Franco Colombo. Now, Franco, being the lightest guy there, and to my knowledge still the lightest guy to ever compete in the World's Strongest Man competition, finishes in 5th place. And that was after blowing out his knee while running with a fridge. Missing 2 full events. Now, Ferrigno, being the much larger man, would go on to finish even higher and even won the car deadlift and steel bar bending, while they both did very well across the board. And these weren't exactly pump events mimicking bodybuilding training, these were awkward, heavy dynamic tasks like pull this, carry that, lift that cage of women like it owes you money. And the bodybuilders did surprisingly well against actual strength athletes. But why? Well, because big muscles still produce a lot of force. Myofibrillar hypertrophy doesn't suddenly stop working because you get a tan or you hit a front double bicep. And bodybuilders certainly have a lot of muscle. Now, were they optimized for rate of force development? No. Were they as explosive as Olympic lifters or even powerlifters? Definitely not, but they were strong, and they were strong across the board. And way back then, bodybuilders didn't look like this in the off-season either. They were still big, sure, but they were also movable, and guys like Arnold actually used to run and bike as cardio several times per week, which, although it's not gonna make you an endurance athlete, it does play a role in general physical fitness. So if you look at all of these stories, you see a pattern, because the bodybuilders who performed well in athletic feats either had athletic backgrounds, they had freaky genetics, or they weren't so oversized that movement became a liability. And the guys who struggle and wouldn't perform well in other sports are purely specialized for bodybuilding. And when you're just standing there on stage, you don't really get rewarded for speed, agility, strength, or anything else. Just the way you look and how much oil you have on your body. So of course, if you only train for slow controlled hypertrophy for 15 years and avoid any other movement, you're not going to be as athletic most of the time. But that's not the muscle's fault. Strength as an ability plays a role in everything you do and in every single sport, but to different degrees. It's more about training specificity. Like, athleticism isn't just about muscle size, of course. It's about rate of force development, aka how fast you can produce force. It's tendon stiffness, it's coordination, it's movement efficiency, and how well you can manage your body mass. Bodybuilding definitely maxes out the muscle component, but sports maximize what you get out of those muscles and what you can use them for. And if you're effectively able to combine the two, then you can become a freak of nature. On the other side, if you specialize to the extreme and focus on just one single thing, like most bodybuilders at the elite level do, then of course you will lack some qualities. That doesn't mean that bodybuilding or just training like one will make you less athletic. It's just that you're not doing anything else. Bodybuilders aren't automatically athletes, but they're not automatically unathletic either. Muscle doesn't kill athleticism at all, but extreme specialization certainly does. Now, I'm curious to what you guys have seen. Have you trained with guys who just look insane but move like Brian Shaw underwater? Or have you ever met somebody who just lifts and is insanely athletic and somehow jumps higher than your entire local sports team? Let me know what your experience is down below in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.